Wow. So Anamika, you know, I know that you and Lou have worked together for many years, and you know, he started this way, but I know that there's some influence that you've had on this, and I'd love your thoughts on how one deals with life challenges, how one makes it through with such grace as Lou is discussing.
Well, Lou came into my life, and we came into each other's lives about 9 years ago, I'd say.
About that, yeah.
Approximately, through a mutual friend. And from my point of view, I always end up crossing paths with someone when they're ready for a complete life change. Not just to heal, but to actually really change paradigms, to really change their whole way of being. And Lou was right at that point, and you know, I don't know how aware you were of it exactly at that point where he can articulate it now really well, but he was at the point where he was ill, right? You know, he had
cancer.
He had cancer.
Yeah, prostate cancer.
Yeah, there's a thing about, when you hear the C word, all of a sudden something clicks.
Yeah.
And things shut off.
Yeah.
You can't allow that.
Right.
But she helped me a great deal by changing my thoughts, my spirituality, who really is in charge, thought process, what transforms the physical and the spiritual way to make you last a little longer. And she gave me the groundwork. Even today she does. Give me the groundwork of reminding me that I'm just a small unit on this thing called life. And being a small unit makes you very large. She's a very important person. She came in the right time in my life.
So, what kind of things did you work on? I mean, if you were gonna describe to our audience how they might, if they're going through something like they have cancer, like they have, you know, one of those dark night of the soul kind of moments.
Well, Lou had really lived his dream to the best of his ability. You know, to the extent that he was aware of what he thought he wanted and who he thought he needed to be, right? And then that led him to a place of really, which it does to everybody, and this is an exciting place where you go through a breakdown or a dark night of the soul, because it isn't the end of life as you've known it, it's the end of life, well, it's not the end of life, it's the end of life as you've known it, is what I mean. So you really get to change who you think you are. And what happens for everybody in this journey, and this is where I met Lou, is he was very identified with the small I, with that part of himself that he's saying, it's me. You know, it's not me anymore. He's saying, it's not me, it's God. So what he's saying is, it's not me anymore, just identified with that small part. Because if I only listen to the thoughts, the feelings, the desires, the wants of that small part, well, that's the part that had a woman on each arm, and that's the part that had this and that. But that wasn't him in conscious contact with the bigger part of himself.
Yeah, it's in the DNA generationally.
That small part.
That small part.
So this is like our DNA conditioning.
You behave according to what is expected. And when you do something on Friday and it's successful, you party. It's the reward syndrome. And then Sunday you give up the thing at church, and then you start Monday again doing work and being very responsible. And if it's successful, on Friday night you party.
Right.
There's an end to that, and there's a larger life than that. But when you're involved, when we are involved with that, we think that's the only way to go.
Right.
So now I recognize it in others now.
So this notion of there's someone else in charge, it reminds me of, you know, the Lord's Prayer is, I kind of rewrote it for a more modern me. And one of the things that I keep in there is thy will. And then I add, not my will, but thy will
Not mine be done.
Not mine, but thy will be done. Is that kind of what you're talking about, or is it a little different than that?
That's on the right track.
Okay.
It's actually our. Because
our will be
it's
done.
Our.
Ah, yes.
Because we are multidimensional. We're not just a little part or a big part. We're all of that. And what happens in the spiritual process, some of the journey of development, is that, for example, the stage that Lou was at, which was very powerful, was he came to really face that the way he had been was no longer working for him.
No longer working.
That the results of that were that his body was full of cancer. Well, maybe not full, but some organs were. He was broken down. He was in a wheelchair. He was having tremendous...
Yeah, I pulled in negativity by staying in the same place and not moving, not changing. And change is ultimate. It's necessary. Change
is necessary.
Constant
change is life.
Change is
life. And those of us now, I can recognize those rules, those Congress, those countries that have stopped are the ones having trouble.
right. The countries that have stopped changing are
And
the
adjusting.
countries and adjusting and moving and shifting, and those are the ones that are in trouble. And the same with individuals.
So if you look at it as an operating system that each of us individually has within our DNA, that the world has, it's an operating system like a screensaver on a computer that just doesn't change. So if you're identified with it as yourself, this is me, I am the operating system, then you live within that perpetually and you keep producing or creating what the operating system says.
Right, right.
Yes.
And there's a misperception
Yeah.
that we're safe.
Yes.
within
It,
that.
it tells you this is how you'll get your needs met. If you do this and this, you'll be safe, you'll be rich, you'll be famous, you'll be whatever. You'll be happy, you'll be loved, and it has you constantly reaching outside of yourself, giving away your power, in fact, looking for things to fill the hole. It says, I'm empty, I'm not an infinite, full, abundant being within myself. No, I have to find that somewhere else. So we reach to people and substances and all kinds of things to try to fill an
it.
imagined hole.
Yeah.
Right.
But what if there is no hole? That's just the voice of that operating
Yeah.
system. But what happens is when you believe the operating system and its voices and its stories, you live according to that. And when you get to the end of that and being ready to change, which is where Lou and I encountered each other, he was ready to change. He'd come to the end of that. He had lived it out to the hilt, which is what you need to do. You need to really play it out.
Yes, it's
Play
got to
it
be
out.
over.
Play it out till
Yeah.
you see in living technicolor, this is the end result of
Right.
that way of being.
So no one's doing anything wrong.
No,
No,
it's
there's
not.
no
Once we
villain
get
in
to
the story.
that moment of cancer or
Right.
upset or divorce,
There's no
or
villain in the story.
Right.
There's no villain
Right.
in the story.
No.